Which tastes better? A full rack of ribs from the barbecue or single ribs?
Big thanks to KJ Joe for sponsoring this episode.
Did you know you don't have to smoke your ribs as a full rack of ribs? You can also cut them up into individual ribs and then smoke them on the barbecue. And I wonder if the single ribs are going to be better than the full rack of ribs. So that is what we're going to find out. Of course, I selected some beautiful baby back ribs for this experiment. A big advantage of cooking a full rack is that they're less likely to dry out. But a big advantage of slicing them up into single ribs is that you get to apply more seasoning and the cooking time is going to be less. Of course, that's all theory. Now let's put it to practice. I'll be using the Konnected Joe. So first I'm going to put in some charcoal. These barbecues run super efficient, so you only need 2 hands full of charcoal. Then push the ignition button. I'm going to put in 3 chunks of smoke wood because I want a little heavier smoke profile. Put the heat deflectors in. Close the lid, open up the top vent, and Bob's your uncle. I'm going to remove the membrane on both of these racks of ribs. And if you get the right one, they're going to have a lot of meat and a lot of fat on them, which is going to make them juicy, tasty. There we go. For seasoning, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to use the PITMASTERX Texas barbecue seasoning. I'm just going to sprinkle this. I could use a binder, but in this case, I really want to go for the experiment and focus a little less on the flavor. But by keeping it simple, it allows me to focus more on the technique and the result of the technique than to focus on the flavor. This rack of ribs can now go onto the barbecue. There we go. Now I can slice up the ribs into single ribs. It really feels like sacrilege cutting into these ribs at the moment. Like I'm doing something wrong here. But in the name of science, we're going to do this. Now this is where the difference starts. Of course I'm going to season them, but there's going to be a lot more seasoning on all sides of these ribs. See that? It's more everywhere. This is a single bite, of course, and a snack that you can serve up like this. You don't have to cut it afterwards. This is going to go on the barbecue as well, and I'm just going to leave it on a rack so that it's easy to transport them with still plenty of airflow in between the ribs. I'm going to let the ribs smoke for about an hour and a half and then check on them. Ooh, that's starting to look good. Let's take the full rack off and take a closer look at it. Look at that beauty. You see, in 1.5 hours, the core temperature is mostly at 70 degrees Celsius. And that means the ribs have taken on most of the smoke flavor as they can. So now we're just working on the outside, but instead of continue cooking them for that beautiful dark bark, you can also start focusing on making them juicy and tender. And that's what we do with the texture scratch method, aka wrapping them in aluminum foil. But these are absolutely gorgeous. I love the way these look. My personal favorite way of cooking ribs is by adding some butter at this point, lay down some molasses, and a little bit of all-purpose barbecue sauce from my good friend Barbecue Ausreinessen. There we go. And then with the meat side pointing toward the sauce, I'm going to wrap these up, seal them off airtight, and put them back on the barbecue. Now let's take a closer look at the single ribs. Look at that. They absolutely look fantastic, and you can see the advantage here of a single rib is that you have a crust on all 4 sides instead of just the bottom and the top. That is starting to look good. They're still juicy. So at this point we're going to give them the same treatment. That's hot. Don't do that at home. In this case I'm just going to put the butter on, a little bit of molasses, all in barbecue sauce. There we go. And now we're just going to treat this as a package, fold it in, roll it up, secure it, and with the opening towards the top, back on the barbecue. I'm going to give them probably another hour, hour and a half for them to be done. All right, time to take them off and take a closer look. Wow, super excited. Single ribs, rack of ribs. I'm going to start by unpacking the regular rack of ribs. Let's carefully open this up. Ooh, oh my, that looks super tasty. At this point it is fall apart tender. Oh, that is what I was afraid of. You see, for the single riblets I want them fall apart tender, and because then you're gonna have the perfect snack. But that means for the rack of ribs we went for the same cooking temp and time, but it also means it's gonna fall apart on you. I'm just gonna take one and pop it out. Look at that. Just hold the meat back a little bit. You see that? The bones come straight out, super tender. try and get a slice out of this. This knife is not that sharp, so the better knife to use at this point. Juicy, smoke ring. This looks freaking amazing. This rib just screams eat me. I'm gonna put it aside. I'm going to take a look at the single ribs. It's equally hot, of course. There we go. Oh, wow, these look amazing. Just gonna transfer a couple of these. Move this aside. Look at that. We got flavor all around with these ribs. They look immaculate. So that's kind of cool. Now you get to see the difference. Of course, we get that cut so you can take a look inside. But here we've got flavor all around. So it just looks a little bit better. Is it fall off the bone tender? Well, let's find out. It definitely falls off the bone. Look at that. Boop. All right, let's take a bite out of the ribs of the rack rib. It is juicy, it is tender, it is tasty. It's what you expect of a rack of ribs. Now let's try the single ribs. Does it have more flavor? Is it juicier? Is it less juicier? Is it more or less tender? Let's find out. So obviously this is not what I'm hoping for, because the outcome of the test is that the single ribs are better. Why are they better? Well, they're better because they have more flavor, they have more bark, more texture, and the main thing that compared to the rack ribs, they're not less juicy or less tender. And why am I so disappointed with this outcome? Well, I kind of like the rack of ribs. I kind of like the whole slab thing where you get served the whole rack of ribs. And if I get a bowl of single riblets, it's just not the same thing looks-wise. Tell me what you think about this test. Tell me what you think about the results and how you would approach it. And then next time, if you're cooking ribs, try this at home and tell me how yours turned out. Because honestly, the single ribs, I don't see a way back anymore. Cheers guys, see you in the next one.